The program is Changemakers Circle on Click Niger online channel, the place where we talk about the workings of civil society organizations in Nigeria, and this program is being done in collaboration with Skill Hub Consulting. My name is Ehi Ohiani. Changemakers Circle is coming to you in collaboration with Skill Hub Consulting, an organization dedicated to improving the performance of development practitioners and organizations to reach their full potentials in changing our world for the better. Skill Hub Consulting. And today I'm going to be talking about the challenges and innovations going on within the CSOs or the civil society organizations in Nigeria. We'll talk about some solutions to some of those challenges. What are the innovations going on there? Wherever there are innovations, there are always challenges. And to do that with me, I have Mr. Damilare Babalola. He is the National Program Manager of the EU Agents for Citizen-Driven Transformation Program. Mr. Damilare Babalola.
Nice to have me. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be here.
You have been working in the CSO circles for quite a while now. You are someone who has a whole depth of experience. I believe you have, experience in terms of the finance, in terms of administration, in terms of managing, different projects. So when we talk about challenges with CSOs, people always feel that CSOs have money. In fact, when you mention CSOs and you mention funds, when you mention CSOs, the next thing that comes to mind is funds. Because they just believe, those people, they've collected money, they have funds.
Yes.
It's just they think donors, exactly. Right? But then you also, on the flip side, you also have CSOs complaining that they don't have funds, they can't access funds, there's no fund. What exactly is the situation?
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, that's an interesting perspective to the work that we do in the civil society sector. The money that we spend, that people assume or literally think, is money. They are not free money. They are money meant to be used for something. And so if you are a genuine civil society organization, you are focused, you are determined, you do that exactly which you are intended to, supposed to do with the funds that you have. So you don't literally have the money. It's another person's money, another person's money that is put in your trust to be able to deliver certain objectives. And so if you are spending that money in that way, it's not your money. You're just in custody of that money to use it to achieve certain things. But however, because civil society is quite very broad, and like you find in any other sector, there are bad mixes within that sector. And so when you see 1, 2, 3 friends coming together and pulling funds together and saying we are forming a civil society organization and they have the money and they lavish it around, so technically people also still think, they have got the donors fund and all of that. But in the practical sense, a civil society organization that is doing the right thing that they are supposed to be doing, that money isn't meant for you to show off. That money is meant for you to achieve a specific objective. And I think that is where the balance needs to be. First and foremost, the narrative in the public space needs to change around what is money that you are talking about for civil society organization. It's not personal money. If I am a businessman, people see what I do and I'm rich, I can spend my money the way I want. You are a civil society organization, even if you are not getting donor funds, you are getting maybe donation support from your friends. It's still money funds committed to you by people who believe in what you are doing. So it's technically not your funds in that real sense. So we need to be redefining the concept of what is money that people refer to when they talk about civil society organization. So let me leave it there first.
In Nigeria, everything has its own interpretation, and all that. I mean, like you just explained it really, really clearly. But in Nigeria, we always feel, it's funds meant for this or meant for that. The average Nigerian doesn't see it that way. What comes to their mind is when the money hits the account of the organization, it is money, it's share money.
It's money, national cake, let's share it.
Exactly.
We've actually been in very difficult situations and circumstances, both in the south, in the northeast, in the northwest, where before you are trying to, even the community that you are trying to help or support, they will barricade the road and say, well, until we clear the road, we have to get our part before you can do one thing.
And so by clear the road,
you mean, of course, you have to drop something. And now if you are really a civil society organization working the talk, it's become very difficult for you. And it's extremely difficult. How do you explain that to your funder? That, because they didn't allow us to get into that community, we have to grease their palm. We don't do that typically.
But how would a civil society organization or an NGO handle that kind of situation? Because people do demand for payments of different sorts. So should they be paid? What should be done?
Ideally, no, because one of the things that we have advocated, that we have put to practice, that we have seen work, is a prior engagement with the community leaders. Okay. Especially if you are doing community level work. It's very, very important that you have to understand who are the gatekeepers. And the gatekeeper don't necessarily means the chief or the big man. It could literally be the boys around. You need to understand what drives, what are the incentives that you can put forward. So perhaps do some form of courtesy visit, explain the intention of your project to the stakeholders in that community. That's one level. Then the second level is to carry them along in what they are doing. So they share the ownership of what you want to do. And once people get that level of buy-in, it becomes a lot easier for you to navigate, that difficult terrain in terms of grease their palm, give us, something. Once they get that understanding, it's easier for you to then move on. That's one way that we have found that works very well.
So how the issues around corruption, the perception of corruption in the civil society space?
So I like the word perception because, to be honest, across all the sector, you will always find something not working. So civil society organization or civil society sector in itself is not a perfect space. So you always find people who want to, cut corners, do some untoward actions and all of that. So it's happening. There is no doubt about the fact that it does happen. But what we do, or what is advisable, is if there are instances of corruption, particularly that has to do with the funded programs or funding coming from the donor, there are mechanisms in place that you put in place to ensure that there's, for instance, you could put whistleblower in place that could sort of report instances like that will enable the funder to take appropriate action, including blacklisting such organizations. There are also check and balances, because what we also like to do is actually to prevent it from happening, rather than waiting for it to happen and then try to now cure or remediate it. So we try to prevent it from happening, and so you put a lot of checks in the process that will forestall the occurrence of corruption. Of course, like what you find in bank, the sector is made up of individuals from different background, different understanding of the work that they have come to do. A lot of people are also in the civil society organizations that they're just sort of trying to use it to pass the time. Perhaps that's not what they want to do. And people like that can, of course, when the opportunity comes, they can want to abuse it. But once you have some certain checks in place, for a donor, let me just say this, for a donor to make funds available to a civil society organization, it's not a small deal. It isn't a small deal. From different level of checks, but starting from your applications, starting from due diligence, starting from checking your systems and procedures, approval, banking details and all of that. So we do a lot of background check just to make sure that we are able to forestall it. But we also have instances where people want to circumvent the right thing, and when that happens and it comes to your attention, you take immediate actions, and which could literally means that you stop the relationship with that organizations immediately, report them to the police if need be, or the anti-corruption agencies if need be, depend on the scale of the corruption that we are talking about, and entirely also try as much as possible blacklist them so that there is no reoccurrence from that organization with another donor.
So when you say whistle blowing, who is blowing the whistle? Community members?
It could be community member, it could be members of the staff, it could be, so because it's supposed to be anonymous. To the organization, so it's supposed to be anonymous, so that you protect the identity of the whistleblower. And so we have had instances that community literally just write and say, oh, we understand that you are giving this organization some money to work with us, they are doing their thing, we don't know about it. Wow. Then that does not necessarily mean a whistleblowing, it's just the community not happy with what you are doing. And so we have to investigate that kind of detail and see, is it true, are you doing the right thing? Because sometimes you are giving money to make toilets and then you are using that money to do borehole. It's not the same thing, even though you are doing something. What led to that was their prior approval for changing that process. So with things like that, we have to be investigated. Most importantly, what also form the basis of corruption that people don't sort of understand, not just only in civil society organizations but across board, is conflict of interest. I am the executive director of a local organization, and then all the procurement goes through my wife or through my brother or through, and people don't sort of think that there's conflict of interest around it. So can your wife or family member provide the services? Fine, yes they can, but follow the right process. Let me know that, oh, this organization, we found instances where the executive director also set up parallel companies, and all the procurement has to go to. That is corruption at a large scale. Even though the funds may not be in the hundreds of millions or billions that you are talking about, but the intention is similar. And so things like that we have to try as much as possible to eliminate it, and we do that by ensuring that there are checks and balances. Instances where you just do spot check, you put that in the contract before the start. You have spotted uninformed visits, just to sort of making sure that they are doing what they are supposed to be doing. And some of these things also, the CSOs themselves are finding it very helpful. A lot of them do not have processes and procedures in place that could forestall this. Some of them don't understand it, but as a result of working with the donor, as a result of also wanting to improve their system, they begin to put some of these things in place, and that's what we want to see. And there's quite a lot of them doing that.
Changemakers Circle is coming to you in collaboration with Skill Hub Consulting, an organization dedicated to improving the performance of development practitioners and organizations to reach their full potentials in changing our world for the better. Skill Hub Consulting. I'll be speaking with Mr. Damilare Babalola, and the program is Changemakers Circle on Click Niger online channel. Now you talked a little bit about cohesion in performance of the CSOs themselves. What would you have to say in terms of that's cohesion in their performance and their output? So
in the past, it is changing. The landscape for operation and interactions among civil society organizations is really changing, and that's what we want dramatically, and remarkably it's changing. But in the past, what used to be is that organizations work in silos. So you can have organizations doing something similar but not talking to themselves, protecting their turf and all of that. But in the recent past, now we have seen them coming together, building alliance, and that is what
coalitions.
Coalitions. It may not necessarily be a long-term coalition. It could be a coalition or alliance relating to a particular project, relating to a particular cause. So, and they deliver that program, and each goes their way. And what they are doing independently is not affected.
Are there instances that we can lay,
Oh yeah, on the program that I am managing, we have what we call consortium approach in 10 states of the federation that we tested it. Rivers, Rivers, Kano, Edo, Lagos, And we have these smaller organizations who are desiring to learn from more established organizations and forming coalitions together or consortium together to implement a project across different areas: education, health, drug abuse, and all matter. And the experience is so much that they have decided to keep working together. And beyond that, even at the national scale, you probably have heard about a Nigerian Situation Room, for example, pulling civil society organizations together to talk around democratic governance, strengthening, improving the quality of our election processes. You probably have heard about other talk, working in the area of peace building and conflict management.
And even some policies and laws that have been
so which is where I'm coming to now. Under the program that I manage, one of the things that we did very, very extensively is strengthening the regulatory environment for civil society organizations. And we work with a number of CSOs at the federal level and then supporting at the regional level. They have now come together to form by themselves, by civil society, driven by civil society, form together to come what they call what's the name now? I'm trying to remember, but maybe I'll remember. But the essence is that they come together to address issues, common issues of improving their regulatory environment in two areas. Legal environment, that has to do with policies and legislations made by the government. How do they keep engaging that process so they have a face with the government and that can resolve issues? And then at the second level, self-regulations. So regulatory provisions within the sector by themselves, managing themselves, so they don't have to be chased, they don't have to be policed, do the two things right. And so they have that, I think it's Council for Civil Society Self-Regulatory in Nigeria is around, and then they have also the CATI, which is also looking at that legal legislation. So that is the way forward. And that is an innovative approach, one of the innovative approaches that is going on in the civil society sector in Nigeria today. Bonding, the more the merrier, push forward together. Let's move things, collectively. Of course, it does not affect in any way or form the cause that you are pursuing as an individual. But what are those common areas, policy level issues, operational level issues that we can jointly address and that we can resolve together? And the more we resolve it, the better for the operators in the sector. And that is the idea in that area.
Okay. All right. Now, talking about, legislation, there are times when some laws come up and legislation is made in favor of work that is being done by civil society organizations, and there are also times when disadvantageous legislation is being made against the works that civil society does. What should the civil society organizations do in those kinds of scenarios or situations when disadvantageous legislation, come up?
So just to quickly put it in proper perspective, any law that is made for the betterment of civil society organization is law for the betterment of the country. It's not for civil society. So if you talk about human rights law, you talk about VAP, law, you talk about domestic abuse law, it's for the betterment of and that is the cause that civil society organization is interested in. Now there is the other part, when the one that you call disadvantageous law, and we have to also put it in check. There are laws already that covers and govern the activities of civil society organizations. So the sector does not require further repressive law to guide it. So if you talk around laws that protect terrorist funding, civil society is a corporate entity. If it talks about law that talks about tax, civil society is a corporate entity. There is within that aspect that governs what civil society organizations do. But what we have seen, and which we are not very happy with, is when the political elite, most especially, begin to raise the idea that, what the civil society organization, they are not regulated. Those kind of narrative come from an uninformed, mindset, because the only difference between civil society organizations and the business entity is profit making. We don't make profit, so they make profit. So every law that governs corporate entity Government civil society organization. Because I'm a civil society organization, I can't just go to the street of the and say I want to buy something for free. There are procedures for it. So when we have instances of such law, one of the things that we do to resolve it is to engage. Gone are the days when you carry placard. Of course, there will still be room for it if we need to. But in the 21st century, engagement is the way forward. Engage, and we have seen that work and produced an effective result. If you have been following the trends in the last nearly almost all the assembly, there have been instances of civil society law, social media law, and all of this law, but they've not been successful because there have been engagement. And that's what we still want to continue to do. Engage these politicians, engage the policymaker, so they understand the roles and functions and responsibility of civil society.
What does this engagement look like?
So engagement is having a roundtable conversation with them, where necessary build their capacity to understand the rules, and because most of the things that happen is because they don't know what civil society organizations do. So in the last 5.5 years, we've worked with.
But there are also some who probably know, but I mean, well, maybe perception-wise, it might be seen like they know, but they feel maybe cultural alienations or belief systems, and things like that. Sometimes some people try to protect some of those old practices and enforce them or enshrine them through laws, because that's what they believe in, or they try to push some kinds of laws. Some of them may never see the light of day, but you just see somebody spring up somewhere trying to push something.
So it's still a product of an uninformed mindset. The age that we are now, everything is in black and white. We can read, we can understand. If you don't know, we can engage people to help you. And there's a vast resources available now. It's not like not even like 5 years ago, not even like 10 years ago. In the age as of today, if you put it on the internet, what is the current trend in this? People can get it, but we are so lazy. Minding my work, particularly at the political level, to do the needful before we begin to raise some certain issues in the public. And I think that is one of the reasons why we would continue to advocate for engagement. So we are necessarily build their capacity to understand the responsibility of the civil society organization. We are necessarily also try as much as possible to understand their own perspective. Communication is two-way. It's not just only they need to know what we do. We also need how our actions or inactions affect their work. And that was the example I was going to cite. In the last 5 years, we worked with FIRS extensively, EFCC extensively, Federal Ministry of Budget and Planning extensively, to look at what are the issues. And the product of our relationship is such that today, as we talk, corporate affairs now have a platform where civil society organization and all of us, customer can register online as a result of some of the things that we did with them. FIRS now comfortably attend meetings with civil society organizations on tax issues, comfortable to tell public about what their responsibility is. Prior, they just sit in the office, think that, we have discharged this regulation, we have to follow it. But because of engagement, we have been seeing that productive relationship, and I believe there's still room for more of such engagement.
Okay. So when we move just a step away from legislation, then we get into implementation of legislation. We have fantastic laws, we have bills that have been passed and then they've become laws today. The struggle has been real. But after we now have those laws, implementation becomes, an issue. Now, implementation of laws as a hindrance to the work that CSOs do. What can be done about this?
Well, it's real. So, laws are paper. They are just mere paper until when it is implemented. And when you make law, there are supposed to be structures that you put in place to ensure effective implementation. And that's one of the things that we keep telling the lawmakers to say, look, if you are going to make law, do your research, understand that there was nothing before. If there is something before that you want to build on, then it is easier for that structure to drive the implementation. But if you make a completely new law and is assented to, is signed up to, do you also make the provision for the implementation structure? Where those structures are not available, then it becomes very difficult. So for example, the justice system now needs to be completely revamped to make room for effective implementation of the VAP law. For example, it is being implemented. We are seeing results. We are seeing actions taken. We are seeing commitment and all of that, but not at an accelerated rate that we would have wanted it, and it's the result of certain other things that needs to be put in place. So when those things are not put in place, it makes the work of civil society organization very difficult. So we, or let me say, civil organizations in our sector who works in that related area, for example, as we are using VAP, will find it difficult. When someone is raped and you take that person to the police, and the process to support to get quick justice around it is not enforced, then you are very frustrated seeing that kind of a thing.
But how would that affect the reporting of that CSOs back to their funders? Because these are real hindrances that is probably stopping them.
So that we organizations who work in that kind of an area set targets that they want to reach. There are a lot of understanding that we need to gain, that policy level engagement takes a long time. So funders know that. I won't give you funds to do something that you won't be able to achieve in 2 years, and I will say you should do it in 6 months. So when you set your target, so for instance, you want to raise the understanding and awareness of that law within a particular community, then that is what the funder is interested to hear. And of course, if it then goes there, that becomes what we call unintended outcome. But setting realistic objective is one of the things that we do at the level of funder, to ensure that organizations are not held accountable to what they are not able to achieve. Basically, we won't do that. But there are a number of organizations that also put the boundaries. They get very little, but because of the passion, because of the commitment, and because of the vision that they share, they do a lot more. So when instances like that happen, it allows funders to want to do more with them as part of the incentive that comes. It may not necessarily be the same funder, but other funders are seeing the proceed of what they are doing, and they are interested in working with them, and there are a number of them how they are doing.
So just as a way of wrapping up, it would be good to have real scenarios or stories or success stories of how CSOs have been able to work to create this impact and changes that we've been talking about. Yeah.
So I'm going to cite example of one, even two CSOs in one in Adamawa, one in Plateau, because some of these things it's not far-fetched, and this relates to the issues of farmer-elder conflict in these two locations, these two stories. And there's a group of women-led CSOs, and they were affected by the activities of this. The community is affected by the activities of the elder men. And this group, this CSO, proactively engaged the community and the elder, and the elders. And what the result was very stunning.
I'll be speaking with Mr. Damilare Babalola, and he's the National Program Manager of the EU Agents for Citizen-Driven Transformation Program. The program is Changemakers Circle on Click Niger online channel. This program is being done in collaboration with Skill Hub Consulting. My name is Ehi. Changemakers Circle is coming to you in collaboration with Skill Hub Consulting, an organization dedicated to improving the performance of development practitioners and organizations to reach their full potentials in changing our world for the better. Skill Hub Consulting.